Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/ProRevenge, where you guys come to hear some satisfying stories of people getting what they deserve. Guys, in this episode, you're going to hear 3 tales of revenge. The first story, OP gets a big revenge on his boss over some tools. The second story, OP and his girlfriend get some satisfying revenge on a property manager. And we'll finish up with a story where OP gets revenge on their parents. My friends, I do hope you stay for the stories today, and do yourselves a favor and subscribe for future revenge stories. If you guys like this kind of stuff, let's dive in, my friends. So, I'm a painter that worked for around 5 years, essentially running a company for an owner who took a very hands-off approach. He was essentially just a name, and working capital, and not much else. After getting an offer to work for a bigger commercial company, my old boss came to the realization that he would have to run his own company, as there really wasn't anyone else in-house that was qualified. He resorted to acting like a child to try to make me stay, and I didn't. So after I left, he made me run around the world to receive my final paycheck, which I never even got, and he refused to return my tools spread throughout various jobs. As luck would have it, I got a really good job offer from an even bigger company shortly after. They wanted to subcontract me to do a very substantial amount of their work. I took on the work, but realized I'm gonna need more employees for that. And now, for revenge. So I go through and call each and every member of my old company and offer them a $3 an hour raise to work for me, which all of them gladly accepted, having worked with me for years. I also convinced them to quit, giving no notice. Before they walked out of their job, I then asked them to grab only my tools from their respective jobs when they leave for the weekend on Friday. Monday rolls around, and my boss is getting calls left and right from supervisors, asking why nobody's at work and what's going on. The boss was so hands-off that he didn't even have employees' phone numbers to call to ask them. He's essentially without employees and little to no tools to complete any jobs at this point. So fast forward 6 months, and his company has now closed. He's lost all of his work. His new addition to his house has come to a grinding halt halfway through construction, and he's hurting big time. I never got my last check, but I did get a great group of workers and a company of my own, so I guess I'll call it even. You know what? The only thing I've learned from reading a lot of these revenge stories is that owners of companies should always pay out the last paycheck. The few hundred or a couple thousand you owe them is less than you'd pay in the end. And trust me, I've learned a lot from reading these revenge stories. It never works out for bad bosses. After graduating college, my girlfriend and I moved to a new state where she was accepted into an engineering program. We found a lovely apartment-style complex that advertised 100 megabits per second internet speed, included in the price among a few other amenities. When we met the property manager, he seemed strict, but well-mannered, nothing out of the ordinary, until we signed the lease. So, the first problem. Suddenly, walking into his office was not allowed without an appointment. I had come by to ask a question, saw him browsing social media, and figured he was just as available to us as he made himself seem when we first came by unannounced, to view a model apartment. Nope, he refused to answer my question, and asked me to make an appointment via email. The second problem. The terms of our lease included an attachment to complete within 48 hours of accepting the keys that details all discrepancies within the unit. We submitted the attachment via email around the 40th hour. The property manager responded that the terms recently changed from 48 to 24 hours, and since we had passed the 24 hours, we would be held liable for all found damages. When citing our copy of the lease, which explicitly stated 48 hours, he informs us that we signed an outdated copy and would need to make an appointment to come by the office and sign a new lease. The third problem. The internet speed was not 100 megabits per second as advertised. It was less than 15 megabits per second off-peak and about 5 on-peak. We again contacted the property manager to explain, but were referred to make an appointment. The fourth problem. We made an appointment to address the previous 3 problems. During this meeting, and after I finished voicing our issues, the property manager leans forward and says, "There are other communities in this neighborhood that may be more accepting of people like you and your girlfriend. You are welcome to break the lease and leave." People like you and your girlfriend. I had thought he was referencing our no-nonsense response to his nonsense, but my girlfriend believed he was speaking towards our skin colors, her being a black woman and myself a white man. My girlfriend jokingly told me to check my privilege before getting serious and explained to me that we were experiencing discrimination at the very least. I did some research and discovered the property manager worked for a larger organization that owned several complexes throughout the country. I found their director of human resources on LinkedIn and made a connection. I then emailed her copies of all email correspondence, screenshots of the lease, pictures of the internet speed flags advertised by the road, and more screenshots of online speed tests. We further noted his comments and the implications behind it. The human resources director replied within a few hours and promised us she would look into the issue. About 2 days later, the property manager called us and asked us to come by his office at our convenience. We showed up near the end of the day and sat down across from him. He then proceeded to ask us if we'd be willing to write a letter stating that we accepted his apology, despite him not yet offering said apology, and in return, he would credit us a month's rent, accept our damages attachment, and promise to have the ISP on site within a week to assess the internet issues, and we declined. He then got personal with us and revealed that his job that he worked so hard for may be at stake and asked us to reconsider. My girlfriend leans forward and says, "There are communities in this neighborhood that may be more accepting of people like you, and you are welcome to leave." The property manager was replaced in a week with a super sweet older woman who not only gave us all the things the original property manager promised, but she also made it clear that her office was always open for anything we may need. I looked up the old property manager a few months later on LinkedIn, and he's still unemployed. OP's girlfriend's response had me smiling ear to ear. I love how she used his own words against him. I would have paid good money to see the look on his face when she dropped that burn on him. I can feel the heat from here, guys. It's getting hot. Okay, my friends, so before we get into this last story, I need to give you guys a little heads up and a little disclaimer. So in this next story, OP talks about her abusive family. It's nothing too graphic or anything, and nothing goes into gruesome details, but I just want to let some listeners know ahead of time, because I know this stuff can make some listeners uneasy and uncomfortable, and I totally hate to be the voice that ruins your day. So, if this isn't for you, now's the time to watch another DarkFluff video. I'll link one right here. Guys, I love you, and with that said, let's go. My parents have always had a mutually toxic relationship. Physical fighting, screaming matches, destruction of each other's property, and then a short-term honeymoon phase, and I witnessed it all. It was a cycle. Not only did they do this to each other, but my mother would give us regular beatings, and my father would neglect us, allowing her to hurt us. My siblings and I would see it the worst on weekends. They would have events that lasted days, and often argued well into the late hours. My mother would even take us from home out of spite of my father and have us stay with her family members for days and sometimes weeks. This, of course, would interrupt school and put us behind the other students. I would often come to school tired after being kept awake by an incident between them. In addition to that, I was prevented from building meaningful friendships outside of school because of how strict my parents were. I wasn't even allowed to take part in extracurricular activities because they insisted that they were meaningless and would corrupt me. I became resentful and angry. I hated that they would torment me and my siblings and then could be cuddly and lovey-dovey with each other during the honeymoon periods of the cycle. It disgusted me. By the time I reached my early teenage years, I made a decision to sabotage them at any chance I got. It was easy, since I had been watching their pattern for years. And here is a list of things that I do. I stole money from my father in small amounts. I destroyed emotionally valuable items from each of them. I threw out food that they were saving as treats for themselves. I found receipts of purchases they were hiding from each other and left them out for the other to find. I made each of them think I was siding with them after arguments, getting them to talk to me, and then took their dirty secrets back and forth to increase their distrust of each other. The funny part was, they never suspected it was me. I was just repeating the same behaviors that they'd already been doing, so they always assumed it was the other one. As the years passed, I knew I would be leaving the household when I was an adult, so I expanded on my plan. I knew that my younger siblings would suffer in a household with both of them together, especially after I left. I had been violated in childhood by one of my mother's family members. My father and siblings didn't know, but my mother did. She knew what this person was and left me alone with him multiple times. She hinted to me that if my father ever found out about anything her family had done, that I would be responsible for breaking up the family. That was how she got me to keep quiet about all the things her family members had done to us. Between the two of them, she was the worst. My father was really just neglectful and willfully ignorant of the deep levels of abuse she put us through. He thought that his role as a father was to go to work, bring home the money, and relax. I knew it would take something powerful to make him step up. I also knew that if they were exposed to the authorities, there was a chance my siblings would get separated or be forced to live with worse family members whose evil deeds couldn't be proven. I waited until a few months before I was prepared to leave the household, and then I told my father what happened to me. I told him all the secrets that my mother had kept from him regarding how her family would abuse us whenever she took us to visit and stay with them. My siblings thankfully never went through what I went through, they were just starved on occasion. I told him that I was only telling him this now because I was planning on moving out and needed him to wake up and protect my siblings after I left. I told him there wasn't any hope of saving anything with me, but there was still time for the others to have a good life, and he cried, and it had the desired result. The news traveled through the grapevine in the family pretty quickly. All of their secrets were out. It caused a divide and shook the foundation of everything. People who had married into my mother's family took their kids away quietly. The family's reputation was destroyed in the religious community as well. I got tearful calls from some of them begging me to forgive and to forget, and some even accused me of lying, or accused me of enjoying it, and even asked me to take it all back. I had successfully set my family on fire. I left on schedule, and I cut off contact with my mother, and I had extremely limited contact with my father. I did, however, talk to my siblings constantly. My father stepped up. He cut my mother's family off and didn't allow them to see my siblings anymore. He divorced my mother a while later, once he had the means to take the youngest siblings away and live alone with them. My mother has extremely limited custody. The older ones had already moved out by that time. I am now living without any family in another state. I'm getting mental health treatment and living my life the best I can. I still talk to my siblings. They kept me updated on what's going on. My father is really taking care of the youngest ones, and he helps out the older ones when they need it. They have a far better life than I had because he cares now. We don't talk that much about what happened and what I did for them. We still have a bond, and that's all I want. Pulling together enough courage to have that conversation with Dad and exposing the mother's side of the family, even at risk of tearing the family apart, has got to be one of the bravest things ever. OP, you are a very, very good person, and your siblings are very lucky to have a person like you in their lives to look out for them. My friends, and that brings us to another end of r/ProRevenge. Guys, I am sending everyone virtual hugs after that story. On a happier note, guys, if you want to hear some funny and entertaining stories, check out the last video where an entitled dad picks a fight with a martial arts instructor and gets put in his place. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you all, my friends.